Hi guys, my name is Atusa. I'm a woman chess grandmaster, and today I want to show you one of my games in Continental Chess Championship. So, as you may know that I played in Dominican Republic about 2 weeks ago. The tournament was American Continental Chess Championship, and just the winner of this tournament qualified for the World Cup. So I'm going to show you my last game of this tournament where I had 6.5 and I had the same points as another player, Zoe Tang, who's a talented chess player, junior chess player, and she was also on 6.5, but I had a better tiebreak, so I knew that if I win this game, the last round, I could become an American Continental Champion. And also it was really nice for me because in 2010 in Philippines, I became Asian champion, and that was one of my probably brightest moments in my chess career that I am proud of. But anyway, I really wanted to get this title here, so I can have, two championships in American Continental and also Asian. Anyway, so I wanted to break down the last game because it was an intense game. Everything was on the line, and so let's see how it went. So as you can see, I am playing as black against Gomez Barrera, and I started with e5. So I knew that she was an e4 player. Actually, okay, a short story about this game is that this was obviously the last round, as I mentioned, and usually the last round starts in the morning, so we didn't have that much time to prepare, maybe a couple of hours, and I wasn't sure what to play before this game. I usually play a couple of, openings here, but I wanted to be solid and see how the other games also progress, because if, for example, my rival draws the game, then draw was enough for me to become a champion. So that's why I didn't want to risk it all. That's why I started with e5, which is a solid approach here. So she played knight f3, I played knight c6, knight c3. Okay, this was the moment actually after knight c6 she started to think a little bit more, and since she knew that I am going to play for a win, I think that was a surprising opening for her. So she wanted to play something new. She didn't have any games in this line, knight c3. So, and as you know, 4 knights are pretty safe and white can equalize easily. So she tried knight c3, and it is really difficult to win as black in this opening. So I played knight f6 here, and then she played bishop b5. Okay, so here I knew that there are a couple of options for black: knight d4, bishop b4, and or even d6. d6 was a kind of passive approach here, but since I knew that how you need to coordinate your pieces, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I knew that the game started in the morning, so players can get into time trouble really easily, because in the morning you usually are a little bit slower than usual, and I wanted to play faster and see where the position basically gets me. Here I played d6. She played d4. Here d4 is a great move because my knight was pinned and white is trying to attack the center, attack this pawn, and also d5 is another option. So black needs to take. She took it back. I played bishop d7 because white wants to take the knight. So I protected my knight, castle, bishop e7, bishop f4, and then I castle here. So at this point, I think my opponent started to think a little bit more and see, okay, what the plans are and so on. And to be honest with you, I think this line is easier to play as black than white, even though white has an advantage here. I mean, white is slightly better because white has more space, obviously, and better pieces. But the point here is that black's moves are really easier, and black doesn't need to spend a lot of time to find a plan. So most of the times you want to put pressure on this pawn, so rook e8 is one of the logical moves here, but also depending how the position basically evolves, you want to play c6 or a6 depending white's next moves. So here, after short castle, she played rook e1, which is a logical move. I played bishop g4. The idea behind bishop g4 was I wanted to create some weaknesses for her, and after f3 probably I would just move the bishop back to d7 and trying to open up the diagonal. So after bishop g4, she played queen d2. Another move that she could play here is knight takes c6, and after b takes c6 she could play bishop e2, which is actually a computer suggestion here. And the idea is that white has a slightly better position, and black doesn't have enough space, so I think this was the best option for white. But anyway, knight takes c6 wasn't the move, so she played here queen d2. I played knight e5, and she played h3. So after h3, I need to move my bishop. Here I moved my bishop back to c8, and you might think, okay, why do we need to get the bishop to the first square? But here the point is, the other squares are not that great. Obviously this is just hanging, and bishop e6 the knight can take. Bishop d7, she could exchange the bishops, and I didn't like my bishop on h5, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna play here, and then I'm gonna try to play queen c7 by pushing my pawn to c6. So she played a4. I wasn't sure about this move a4. I was thinking that she could just move the rook to d1, but okay, a4 is usually useful when black wants to play this idea b5. So I played c6 here, she moved the bishop back, and then I played a5. Notice that during the game I was thinking about sacrificing my bishop, for example on h3, and after pawn takes I attack this knight, because if the knight moves then I have a very nice fork here to get the queen. But the problem with this line is that here white doesn't have to move the knight. White can start with this move, bishop takes e5, and now if I take the knight, she can take with the bishop and white is up a piece, or if I take the bishop, she can just move the knight to f3 or b3, protecting the queen, and again white is up a pawn for white is up a bishop for a pawn. So that's why bishop takes h3 doesn't work here. I played a5 instead, which is another typical move. I would say a5 prevents white's a5, and also since black doesn't have enough space, it gains some space for black. So she played rook a d1, logical move. I played queen c7. She played bishop e3. I moved the rook to e8, another logical move, and she played f4. Okay, so at this point, computer really likes white's position, but I think it's not that easy for white because after knight g6, I mean, there is no clear path for white to win, and basically white just needs to maneuver her pieces and try to improve the position slowly. So there is no immediate pawn break or winning move in this position. So at this point, my opponent was really low on time, and that was one thing that I wanted to do, and basically I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to be in time trouble, because being in time trouble in this tournament, I had an experience. It was really, not something I wanted, especially because we didn't have the second time control. It means that the whole game was 90 minutes for the entire game plus 30 seconds where you get bonus for each move. So that's why I didn't want to get into time trouble, and I wanted to just play fast and not make any major mistakes. So she played here g3. Computer says this move is okay, but actually I was happy to see this move. Why? Because after g3 it creates some weaknesses for white. Yes, I cannot attack those weaknesses yet, but as we know, whenever the pawn moves, it creates some weaknesses around him. So the pawn on g2 was protecting two squares. Now the pawn has moved, so now these two squares are more vulnerable, and even the pawn itself can be a target later on, where we can see in the game. Okay, here I played d5. Maybe d5 is a good move here. I mean, it's I would say it's kind of like a psychological approach here, because white is still better, but if I don't play d5 here, probably after bishop g2 I cannot play d5 anymore. And I wanted to attack the center, and also the rule says that you want to complicate the position where your opponent is in time trouble, right? So that's why I played d5. I'm attacking the center. Now white needs to decide what she wants to do, because she's got a couple of options here. She can take the pawn, she can push the pawn, and she can play bishop g2. But obviously the first two options are more logical than bishop g2. So she chose to push the pawn to e5. But my plan was, if she takes the pawn on d5, I wanted to actually sacrifice that pawn and play bishop b4, because when the pawn was on d6, the pawn was blocking the bishop. So I pushed the pawn to d5 and I'm opening my bishop, and I have this nice square on b4 where nobody can attack the bishop, right? So I played d5 and she played e5. I played knight d7. She pushed the pawn one more time, and that was a bad move. As you can see, the question mark on this move, and white lost all of her advantage here, so the position is about equal. But again, I would say it's much easier to play as black than playing as white. So a better move here for white was queen f2 or bishop g2, and trying to improve the position slowly. But a move like e6, which actually is tempting, especially if you are in time trouble and you don't have enough time to calculate, it's kind of opening up the position, but black's pieces are fine. So black pieces are in the game, so white cannot checkmate the king. So here I played knight f6. Here computer suggests f takes e6 better, and after knight takes e6, queen d6, and let's say after bishop f2, knight f6. But I think what I played in the game is totally fine, because here after bishop c5, white could play, okay, bishop d4 or bishop takes e7, and white could simplify the position, and I tried to keep more pieces on the board to make it more complicated. Okay, so that's why I played knight f6 here, and she took the pawn, I took it back, and she played bishop f2, which is a logical move. I played bishop d7. I mean, sooner or later I need to get my bishop out to connect my rooks, right? So bishop d7 was played. She played bishop g2. I played bishop b4. Very strong position for the black bishop. And she played queen d3. Okay, queen d3 is basically a move to unpin the knight, but after queen d3, black can also create some threats, as we will see later on. So I played king g8 here because obviously the king is better on g8 than on f7, and she took, I took, and then she played knight f3, which was a mistake, and here black has an advantage. And notice that at this point of the game, my opponent had just a few minutes left on the clock. I had probably like 20 or 30 minutes, but she had like 2-3 minutes, so she didn't have enough time to think, and she just wanted to simplify the position. So after knight f3, since the knight is on f3, I moved my queen to c8. This is a great move. Why? Because this is a double attack, kind of. I'm attacking the pawn on h3, but at the same time I want to play bishop f5, attacking the queen and this pawn, and if the queen moves to d2, then I have knight e4, which was my dream, to get my knight to e4 where this knight is pinned. So she played knight g5 to protect this pawn. I moved my bishop to f5, attacking the queen, and a potential attack on the pawn on c2. She played queen d2, and then I pushed the pawn, because obviously this knight is covering this square on e4, so I needed to attack that knight to deflect this knight so I can move the knight to e4. After h6, she played g4, but okay, at this point white's position is really difficult. If she would have played knight f3, my plan was to play knight e4, and now if the queen goes to d3, I have knight takes f2, attacking the queen two ways, or if the queen goes to e1, then I could take the knight, and we have another discovery in this position. So that's why she played g4, to attack the bishop instead of moving the knight. Okay, so in this position I took the knight, she took my pawn. Notice that if she takes my bishop here, I can take the pawn on f4. I am attacking here, but also there are some threats on e2, and my queen wants to move to f5 as well, so this is a very nice position for black. That's why she wanted to complicate the position. She played f takes g5, and then I attacked the queen. So now if the queen moves to e3, I can take the knight, and I'm attacking the queen. If the queen moves here, obviously I can play the same move, but I can also move the knight there to attack the queen again. So that's why after knight e4, she just took it with the knight. If she takes it with the bishop, then I could play bishop takes e4, and here black is up a piece for a pawn, and the king is exposed. The light squares are too weak here, and this should be a win for black. So that's why she took it this way. And here I started to think. I was debating between capturing the queen or capturing the knight, because both of them look good moves to me, kind of. And at the end I decided to take the queen and accept this fork. Basically, I played queen e6, she took the rook, and then I played this move queen e2 to attack the rook and also to protect my bishop. So she played here, I played bishop e4, because at this point of the game I wanted to simplify the position and I didn't want to make any complications. I just needed a simple and clean win here, so I didn't want to go for crazy lines or something like that. So she played knight d6 here, I took the bishop, she took it back, I played knight f4, and this was the moment that my opponent resigned here. And with this win I became the champion of this tournament, Continental Chess Championship, and I qualified for the World Cup, which is going to happen in Georgia in July. And the World Cup is one of the most prestigious chess tournaments, and there are just limited spots there, and one of the ways to qualify for that tournament is through the Continental Championship. So I remember back in 2010 when I won the Asian championship, I was really happy because I qualified for the World Cup back then as well. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this game. This was probably one of my most memorable moments in my chess career. I wanted to share with you guys. So I hope you guys also enjoyed this game, and if you have any thoughts about the game and the opening that I played, please share with me in comment section and I'll read them all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.